Hello coder. This time we are going to start web development and we are going to complete the web development from the beginning to the end. So to start the web development we have to understand the working of a website because we are going to create a lot of websites in our course. So we should know how the website actually works as. So first, to understand how the website works, we need to understand what is a website. Now if you know a little bit beforehand, then it will be very easy for you that a website is a collection of well organized interlinked web pages. Now, what does that mean? That means that you will have several web pages. Okay. If we take example of facebook.com, then you will have several web pages. Let's suppose you will have a web page for your dashboard, for your profile. Then you will have a separate uh, separate web page for your messages, your chats. You will have a separate web page for posts. So like that, we will have different web pages that is connected and shared by a common domain name. Now this, what is this domain name? We will understand about it. But right now, if you want to know what is domain name, so I can give the example that the facebook.com that you are going to use, www.facebook.com, that is actually a domain name. Now it is stored on a device called web server. Now this is a part of thing that we are going to learn deeply in the back end. Web server is nothing else but it is actually another computer or system that you have placed somewhere which is running all the time so that any person can come to your website and access the data of the website. So what are the data of the website, we will also have to understand. Now let's suppose this is a website. I've just added some pictures to make it more easy. So this website is a collection of pages. As you can see, there are 3 4 pages here, and as you can see, this is one web page, right? So now we'll come to the next part. That is, what is website made of? Now how can you actually say that whatever we are seeing, how it is created? How this is a very important question that will come in your mind. So we don't have to read this whole thing. The important thing that it is that, let's suppose you have a website. So how is it created is very simple. We'll use coding as usual, and the coding will be done in three major coding languages, like is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is decoded, or you can say decrypted, in the web browser that you see then in the mm, your display in your monitor. So web browser actually converts this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into a readable format and serves you it in a beautiful way. So now what we have to understand is, what is a domain name? As I have already told you that a domain name is actually nothing but, let's suppose, to understand the domain name you have to understand the knowledge of IP address. So what is IP address? You have to understand that IP address is nothing but an identification number for any device. So every computer will have an IP address. To connect to any computer through the internet, you need this IP address. Now actually a server is also a computer, as I told you. So to connect to that server, we need the IP address of that server. But if you know that IP address is actually numbers, series of numbers, which will be very difficult for you to remember. Like for Facebook, you have to remember some numbers, then it will be very difficult. To make it easy, we use domain names. Domain names are actually just a nickname for that IP address, which makes things very easy. Now let's suppose this is the IP address of facebook.com. So what is easy? Just think, writing this thing all the time to get to facebook.com, or writing this thing. Of course this thing is easy, you can remember it. This thing is very difficult. And let's suppose you even remember for Facebook, what about Google, what about other big websites? We have to go to them through IP address. So for that we have this facebook.com. Now Facebook is actually the domain name. As you can see, if I have a website here, we will have something. So this something is actually nothing but domain name. Now we will come to the next thing, that is a server. As I have already told you, this will come uh, very frequently when we study the backend. So what is a server? It is very simple. A server is nothing but a separate computer which contains all the information regarding that website. Okay. So when you create a request from your web browser, like let's suppose you search for www.google.com. Now this request will be transferred through the internet to the server of that Google, and then it will give you a response in the form of the website of that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It will share the file with you of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and the web browser will convert it into a way that you can properly see. So let's suppose you have any of these web browsers. What you do is you create a request. Now this request will be made through the URL domain name www.facebook.com. It will go through the internet, and this request will be served to the web server. Now the web server will take the request and it will validate if the request is proper or not. If the request is proper, it will create a response. Now that response will go to the web browser, and that web browser will actually convert that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into a readable format so that you can see the website in a beautiful way. Now, if I come to the next part, we have to understand this chart. Now, let's suppose you are a user, you enter some website to search. What will happen? This website will go through the browser. Now, the browser will take the URL. Now, that URL will be used for the DNS server. Now, what is DNS server? Is actually a server which contain all the DNS. Like DNS is nothing but the same thing that I already told you. It contains the domain names of everything. So it will match the domain name with the IP address, and then it will make the request to the main server. Okay. So what will happen that the main server will create or a gateway, or you can say create the access for you, and the response will go back to the browser so that the browser can see the website. It is quite simple. So what I want to tell you is that in this course we are going to study about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is actually the front end web development, and for this front end web development we have several other things also, that is React and Angular JS. These things will come in the upcoming videos, but for this series we are going to use the basic ideas of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then we will move to the back end and we will talk about creating the server, creating the links between two of the web page, and then we will complete our web development course by creating a project at the end, a full uh, complete web development project, complete website with the front end and back end. So you have to stay with me in this series. It will be a very big one. So that's it for today. This is the basic of website. Now you will not worry about how it works and what are we learning. You will not be worried about what are we learning, why we are learning HTML. In the upcoming videos I will tell you what is HTML, what is CSS, what is JavaScript, their own separate usage in the creating of website. So that's it for today. Thank you, and do not forget to subscribe and like the video. And if you have any doubts, anything regarding this course or any C++ course, you can comment it in the video and I will be happy to reply. Thank you all, and we will meet in the next video.